For the last 4 months, I've been working on something. This internal struggle that I've been going through. And I figured I'd document it just to see what's happening. So I guess I'll rewind a little bit and just talk about who I am and how I came to be. My name is Orion Russ. I'm 41 years old, originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. When I was 20, I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and I was married. 10 or 11 years later, got divorced. We had 3 children in our marriage. And then from there, it's pretty much what people know me for. It's my life after that. Most of the people that know me, they know me as a father, at least in Phoenix. And the people in New Orleans know me as somebody completely different. And you would have to ask them to have them explain to you what their thoughts of me are and things like that. So I figured I'd share my own words. My mother was a children's pastor at several different churches. We bounced from churches quite a bit. At that point in time, I was too young to know exactly why we kept going from church to church. I still couldn't tell you, but it was kind of like one of those situations where it wasn't my business. I did what my mom told me to do. My older brother was in college most of my young life, so in a lot of means, I grew up kind of like an only child. I mean, he's a good brother. My brother is 9 years older than me. He's a good brother. I love him to death. But I grew up in the church, children's pastor mom. She was never actually my children's church pastor though, which was odd. And in the Christian church, they have the term for the PKs are usually the worst kids. And while my mother was not the pastor of the church, she was a children's pastor. And I went through a lot of the PK things. I did believe wholeheartedly in the Bible and the story of Jesus. I just never felt accepted, really, anywhere. My father is a completely different story, but for the purpose of this video, we'll just say he wasn't around. So my mom, she worked for the VA hospital, some job in accounting, and then when I got a little bit older, she got promoted and was like the head guy's secretary. She kept moving up and moving up and moving up. But for my childhood, my mama didn't make a lot of money. And she herself is the oldest of 10 children. And a lot of my mother's financial responsibility went toward helping out my grandmother and her brothers and sisters and helping them with their children. And it was the Christian thing to do, I guess in her interpretation, which I'm not here to argue, was the Christian thing to do to live like a meager life. Do the best she could, but live a meager life. Like it was better for her, for all of us to have a little bit than for her kids to have a lot and her nieces and nephews have nothing. We also bounced from ghetto to ghetto as well as church to church. And the location of where we lived versus the location of the church had nothing to do with, like, they didn't coincide. We were bus hopping, man. RTA. Juvenile used to be RTA bound. We was on that bus, man. I could get across the entire city of New Orleans by myself when I was like 7 years old. Just because of how often I caught the bus with my mother and all the different churches we went to and all that kind of stuff. So back to me, I grew up in the church, and we were part of the Assemblies of God denomination of Christianity. And we went to First Assembly of God, Inner City Assembly of God, Canal Street Assembly of God, all of them. We went to all these different Assemblies of God churches. And I listened to so many different people teach. And my mom taught me. She even made me read the Bible as punishment a lot. When I did something wrong, or she perceived something I said to be a lie, or I actually flat out lied as kids do, I had to read all of the scripture online. When I got angry, I had to read all of the scriptures on rage and anger and just how that could affect me. So I became very well versed in the actual text of Christianity, not just the lifestyle of church. But I also was from the ghetto, and I was also poor. And a lot of times, as many people know, a, a lot of times, as many people know, the ghetto wins over the church with the influences on young boys and young girls and older men and older women. The ghetto is an avenue that seems to be ongoing and never ending. And that's why for a long time when people called it the trap, it's a trap. So my mother was known throughout our neighborhood for being, I almost said her name. She was known as Sister Such and Such, the lady from the church. And I was known as Sister Such and Such son, who was pretty bad. And in New Orleans at that time, New Orleans has never been a safe city. Let's just make that clear. But New Orleans at that time, in the late 90s, mid 90s, early 2000s, was just, there was murder everywhere. And it was the remnants of the crack era. And heroin got popular. And so, like, it wasn't even uncommon to see people just high on heroin. Like, regular people, weren't even really looked down on. Just like, you mess with that dog food, you hear me? Like, let that man do, that's a grown man, you hear me? Let him do what he do, so. And I struggled. I participated. I participated in a drug game. I dealt one thing, I used another. And I always believed in Jesus. I always believed in Jesus. I just never felt good enough for Jesus. But I wanted to be. And so I started picking up different instruments. When I was 9, I picked up a guitar. I taught myself how to play the keys. When I was 13, I picked up the drums. And when I was 13, I picked up the microphone. And I started rapping. I started rapping with the New Orleans type of swag. And then it just became more guttural and more poetic. And I started to have this conflict that the church didn't really care about the ghetto as long as you paid your tithes. I had that conflict. How do you take 10% of these people's money when they ain't got nothing? And why is it that when we go on these missions and to go witness to people, why are we never going to Lakeview? Why we never going to Kenner or Metairie? We always going to the projects. Because let me explain something to you. Everybody in the ghetto has some type of religion, believes in God. whether that be Muslim or Christian. The people in the ghetto are not unaware. You're not gonna say a couple Bible verses and get to them. They know it. But there was this hypocrisy that I saw as a child. So I would speak through the music. I speak through my music because I said, if I'm gonna be a gospel rapper, I'm not gonna be the one that just kind of treated it like gospel rap, but instead of talking about killing niggas, I'm killing demons. I wasn't gonna do that. When it was my turn to rap, not when I was with the group, when it was my turn to rap on my own, I wanted people in the street to listen to it. So I started telling all of these stories, these different hood tales, stories about the guy and the girl, they fall in love, he get killed. I started telling stories about the woman on drugs. I started telling stories about fathers being in prison and the son being on their own. And very rarely would I reference Jesus. Instead, I would just go to a place or remember a friend or a story that I heard in a barbershop. And I would just create because I'm like, somebody is going through this. And I just hope they hear my song. And I would reference heaven. I would reference hell, but I would never say come to Jesus. And then I made this song called One God. It was to Nas's One Mic. And I poured my all into that song, man. We began performing, me and my little partner Pudge. And literally every day we was somewhere. We was at some church, some youth group. We would get speakers and just go to the park. We performed in the projects. And I left my mama's church and went to a different one. Because I could see that the attention that I was getting for rapping had started to bother her. Because she knew who I was outside of church. I'm not trying to say that I was the biggest, baddest gangster ever. I was not. But I was a part of all of it. And it's not something I'm proud of, which is why I'm so hard on my son. Because I didn't have a father. You have me. You have no excuse. Go to school. Respect your mother. Respect your sister. Respect the people around you. You didn't pay for that neighborhood. That is not your hood. And that hood doesn't make you. So moving forward, we started getting really popular. And all of us that were involved in this one group, you know, I was doing solo stuff. Me and Pudge was doing stuff together, but there was a collective group. I'd say at one point we had like 12 different guys. And man, every youth group, like we'd walk into church and people would lose their mind. Like, oh my God, that's them, that's them, that's them. Yeah, it was us. But then me and Pudge would walk in the mall and nobody would know us except our friends, the people that know us. So I'm like, after all this time and all of this effort, my music is still only going to people that are in the church. And as I grew in popularity, I started speaking in churches to condemn the churches. When I saw something wrong, I spoke it. So people started saying, hey, you want to speak at my church? Hey, you want to speak to this youth group? Hey, you want to speak to them here? Yeah, I speak to them. I started playing churches against each other. There was this thing from church that I went to. It's called the Victory Truck. It had speakers on it and a stage. and this other church had a school bus and a grocery pantry. And we would use those trucks and take them to the projects. We would use that bus and take it to the projects. But see, I wasn't going to the projects to preach to those people. I was going to projects that I'm not from, which is a big no-no. But what I would do was I would go into the food pantry at the church and I would fill that bus up. And the pastor of that church was like, the food gets them in here so they can receive the word of God. So you go drive the bus down there and let them know that if they sit through the entire sermon, they can get a few bags of groceries. I ain't like that. I didn't like that at all. That Caucasian man from Fort Wayne, Indiana, didn't come from where we came from, so he didn't understand. A lot of people, they don't leave because there are too many kids to take. So what I would do is I'd pack up as much as I could on that bus, and I go to every church with a pantry. It's just Saturday morning, so get let in by somebody special, some usher or something. And I fill that bus up with groceries, and I drive to a different project every weekend, Saturday morning. And I stand on top of the bus. I'd open the back door, the emergency exit, and I'd tell people, take what you want. And I would stand on the hood of that bus and I'd just talk. I don't believe I was preaching. I talk like a nigga from New Orleans. I talked in my actual language, not the church language that I grew up with. I used foul language. And because I got known for telling my stories, that became my name, Story. And then one dude called me Story, the foul-mouthed preacher. It made me laugh. But eventually I got caught. They figured out what I was up to, and I lost access to those buses. So I meet my ex-wife, move out here to Phoenix, Arizona, because New Orleans was getting a little rough for you, boy. I stopped making the music. Still believing, but stopped making the music. A few years go by. I'm still with my ex-wife. And a young boy by the name of Trayvon Martin got killed. And it became a social media frenzy. I kept thinking, who is this kid? Who is this kid? This is before I looked into it. The Trayvon Martin got killed. And something shifted in me. And one thing, just to backtrack a little bit, growing up in New Orleans, we had black police officers. We had black teachers. It's not like other parts of the country where people didn't have that representation. We had it all. I had teachers like, I don't remember what school she taught at, but Miss Hudson would tell me the truth. Little boy, you light bright yellow. But ain't no police officer gonna look at you and see your white grandfather. All they gonna see is a nigga, so you better know who you is and who you came from. We got a wax museum that depicts New Orleans' role in the slave trade, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. So it wasn't news to any of us who had ears to listen. And the teachers would tell us the truth. And my mother taught me the truth. But when I really started digging deep into it, I came to this crossroads that I feel like a lot of black Americans do. And that's when you realize that the Bible and Christianity got weaponized to control these people that I came from. Because at the time that Trayvon Martin died, race had once again entered the forefront of the majority of our conversations. And I dove deep into it. I dove all the way into it. I learned about the slave trade. I learned about the different techniques that the slave masters used. I learned about colorism. I learned about different countries in Africa that would offer dual citizenship if you could prove that your ancestors came from American chattel slavery. Started wearing red, black, and green all the time. Started reading about ancient Kemet. Started wearing ankhs and pharaoh's heads. And I started saying, I was like, if they use Christianity, to keep us in chains, then why would I be a Christian? Why would I do that? And I started just digging in all these history books. You know the Black Consciousness Starter Pack, Hidden Colors DVDs, and watching these different dudes debate. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I got lost. I got very lost. Fast forward a couple years, this guy I had met 3 times. His name was Romain Brisbane. I only met him 3 times. I remember. In Phoenix, or was it Glendale? Somewhere in the Phoenix area, there was this little half a club that used to have the local hip hop night. And I saw him over there, and I saw him at the barbershop, and I just saw him in traffic. That dude, like, since the first time he met me, had a big old smile. What's up, man? What's up? So, like, not my friend, but my boy. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah, that's my boy, Ro. Ro got shot by the police and died. Romain's daughter and my daughter share the same name, and they're the exact same age. And it hit me hard. So we ended up marching. My ex-wife filmed and she joined. A bunch of people that I knew showed up. A bunch of people I didn't know showed up too. And I remember I was at the front, and Romain's daughter and her mother and her stepfather were right in front of me, squatted down, and I was standing, and I had a wall of police behind me. I'm talking about like a wall with full riot gear. And I remember I turned and looked at him, and I got the microphone and I started speaking. And this rage hit me, and I just remember I let out a flurry. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I kind of just went numb and started cursing. And when I turned back around, the cop standing over my right shoulder is now about 12 inches shorter. I said, when the hell did they do that? And he looked at me and smirked. And that happened to be the same cop that hugged Romain's daughter, told her he was sorry for her loss. And there was this epic picture that they put on the news and the websites. And a bunch of people that I had met at that march, Hebrew Israelites, so-called black conscious guys, everybody wanted a piece of me. Felt like I was a Christian rapper again. But this time, I know what I'm talking about. I'm studying the laws of Ma'at as well as Santeria, Yoruba. This time I know what I'm doing. I'm fighting for my people. I'm fighting for my people. I am fighting for my people. Not that fake Jesus shit. I'm fighting for my people now. And then I started noticing the same things that I saw amongst the gospel music was the same things I saw in this conscious community. Became a competition of who's more popular. Never really about the people. Never about the children. It's about who's the realest man. Who should lead. Who should get the attention. Who's having the most sex. Polygamy. 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 I said, man, come on. These people that convince me, the people that I used to listen to on YouTube, the people that convinced me, the people that I used to listen to on YouTube, all of those people, all just in it for some ulterior motive. And I started realizing that most of those people didn't actually believe. They had just replaced Christianity with black consciousness. And just how people follow, yeah, get them pastor, follow the pastor, try to be like pastor. You trying to be like this guy. The people on YouTube started seeing all of the flaws in their work, quote unquote work. Just look up what Brother Polite is locked up for. Actually do some research into Dr. Umar Johnson School, Young Pharaoh. Look up all these guys. I started saying, damn. And again, I find myself lost. And somehow in this prayer, I divorced my wife. And in divorcing my wife, I now have a part-time relationship with my kids. And in divorcing my wife, all of our mutual friends took her side. And they stopped talking to me. And my only family that I had here was her family. And of course, they're gonna stick with her. That's her family. I didn't expect anything different. But nevertheless, regardless of the reasons, justified, unjustified, right or wrong, I'm alone again. And I'm alone again with nothing to believe in. And I moved to a trailer, single wide, on 3 acres of land in Maricopa, Arizona. And it is far from everybody. The closest business to my trailer was 6-7 miles away is a Walmart Plaza. It was just farmland and railroad tracks. And I'm alone. And all I can do is think and be mad. Mad, jealous. It's just me and my dog. And I'm mad and I'm angry. Because every family that I joined, I end up by myself. So it goes dark for me. And now I'm only fueled by rage and anger. I don't care about anything. I don't even believe in God anymore. We are conscious stardust. And that's it. We created God so that we can feel better about our mortality because we're aware that we're going to die one day. And I'm telling people that. And I'm actually feeling guilty at this point that I had touched so many people when I was a Christian. I'm feeling guilty because I'm like, I might have made them believe some shit that I don't even believe in anymore. And as I grow older, I realize how much I was wrong about. I realize how many people lie and how propaganda has been used to affect so many different people, so many different races, by corrupt people with power. And that the behaviors of a few Christians, as well as what I read, made me turn away from where I started. So then a couple months ago, I'm talking to my lady. And I said, I don't even really know what I believe anymore. And what sparked that was two of my children. Independent conversations of each other. Two of my children expressed to me their desire to be Christians. Now, I don't know what their mother is. I don't know her to be a practicing Christian. I know they didn't get it from me. But I asked my daughter, it's my oldest. I said, what? What made you think to be a Christian? And she was like, well, Catholic. I said, Catholic is Christian. And she says, I want to be a better person for my baby. I said, wow. I had that same feeling the first time I held her in my hand. And the one that really got me was my son. My son said, Dad, I'm a Christian. He was wearing his cross around his neck. Said his grandfather gave it to him. Like, it's a nice cross, man. He said, yeah, I'm a Christian now. I said, what? You Catholic like I am? He said, no, non-denomination. I said, what? Because I never forced any belief on it. I told them the only thing that I expect from them is whatever you do, study it for yourself. And they both turned to Christianity. And we get a call from my security company. From this young lady, and she says that she needs a certain number of bodyguards for her brother at an event. I said, okay, no problem. We give her a quote. She looks us up. She says, okay, that'll work. We go to meet, and we meet her father. And her father is very proud, man. And he keeps saying, yeah, because my son. They speaking with him like I should already know who he is. She's my brother. Like I should already know who he is. And then, I look at my business partner. I'm like, you know who this dude is? He's like, no. I said, I have no clue who this is. I'm thinking it's a TikToker or something. So we take the job. And the day before, I go to meet this guy. And I see this short-statured man with the biggest smile on his face, like he had just saw his best friend. I say, hey man, good to meet you. My name's Malik. I say, hey, I'm George. So you got the same name as your father? I say, yeah. So, explaining the whole plan to me, what we gonna do. We gonna walk in here, we gonna walk in there. We going through the whole security rundown. Nothing special so far. Not gonna lie to you, nothing special. But now I know his name. So I look him up because, side note, when you are somebody's security, your job is to protect their life. So you should know what they are into and who their enemies might be. So I look him up and I see that this man talks about God and that he's a rapper. And I was like, what? So, okay, whatever. I met popular preachers. I met popular evangelists. I met popular gospel rappers. I was one. So then we go to this event. And I start to see how much his family loves him, how much his wife loves him, how much he loves them, how much his friends love him, how so many people are going to him because what you said changed my life. I just want you to know that. It reminded me of the lady who crawled just to touch the hem of Jesus' garment. Not comparing George to Jesus, but that's how deeply these people were touched. And I just see the love that he's surrounded with and the love that I felt. And everybody gave me hugs. And if people know me, I do not like people touching me. But his entire family hugged me and I hugged them. They hugged my entire security staff. And I'm like, wow, man, that's really good people. So I go. In the next couple of days, I'm in my office. I'm just watching George Janko on YouTube. Seeing the things that he's been through. Seeing that he talks like a regular man. And his message is love. So I go back, I'm talking to my lady, I was like, God is love. She grew up Christian too. And she says, yeah. These people are so full of God's love, and I've never seen that before. And take more jobs for George, guarding him here, guarding him there. And I'm still seeing this effect. People are literally running through skilled killers that are designed to protect this man. And they are so excited just to have that conversation about love and God that they disregard the big goons around George. And George is like, no, you're not here for them. I want them to come up to me. You're here for the ones we don't know about. I said, fair enough, George. I got you. And now I'm watching this podcast, I'm watching him talk. His wife, Shauna, beautiful. She's full of God's love. His mother, beautiful, full of God's love. His father, a real man, full of God's love. His sister, full of God's love. And I say to myself, I want that. I don't want his family. I want God's love. But I don't believe in this no more. And I don't want to make it seem like George and I are friends. I think that he considers me a friend of God that he trusts. But I don't want to make it seem like we have this real close relationship. I'm just saying that as I guard him, I pay attention. It's my job to. And I saw something different than anybody I've guarded before. And now all of a sudden I'm at a point where, again, I don't know what I believe. The world is at a weird place. where everything that you learn in Christianity growing up is now accepted and promoted, and on top of that, you might be considered hateful if you don't believe it. And I just see this man that's full of love, and I'm like, okay, maybe that's just their family. And then I meet his manager, Division. Division is full of love, and I said, man, what? So now I'm at this conflict. Now I'm looking at people that I know that are Christians. So I start sending messages to people that know me that are Christians. The message is something simple. When you get some time, I want to talk to you about God. That's all the message said. And it pains me to say that the only person that responded to that was George and DeVish. The only people that responded. George gave me references, told me about the church that him and his wife go to, and said, brother, I love if you just sit next to us. One Sunday I was thinking about that. The other Sunday I was telling my wife, wouldn't it be cool if he was just sitting right here with us one day? The vision is like, none of us are perfect, brother. And he was like, I see God's love in you even if you don't see it. And he was like, George's family is special. We all don't have that. But we all have God. So the decision that I'm making right now is that I'm going to be open. I'm going to be open to learning and talking and accepting, but only from the people if I see God's love in them. Because here I am feeling just like I did when I was a teenager, looking for a church that I could be accepted at. Once again, ignored or rejected by Christians. And I don't want to say anybody's name, but I'm pretty sure you're going to see and watch this at some point. And I hope you do feel bad, but not for long. I just hope you change. Because what if that day where I contacted you and you say you were too busy or you didn't feel comfortable talking to me? You didn't even reference me to anybody else. What if that was the day I decided that if I don't have this conversation, I'm going to delete myself? And I figure out if God is on the other end on my own accord. You see, I want to thank these two men, Division and George. Because they don't have to respond to anything that I say, neither does anybody else. And they're both successful, they're both gospel artists, they're both social media people. But they have proved to me that they'll put something down to make sure that their brother's okay. And if somebody needs to be led to God and understand that it's God, not the person, that they're willing to show them the way. So I'm not saying I'm a Christian. I'm not saying I know what I believe. I'm saying that I'm open to it. And hopefully I won't be lost for long.